I'm Kaveh Solhekol, the Chief Correspondent at Sky Sports News, and this is Kaveh's Ask Me Anything questions about transfers. How long do you work during peak transfer season, and do you manage to achieve a healthy work-life balance? Well, it depends which window it is. Obviously, the summer window is a lot busier than the January one. So the January one, I think you can have a pretty good work-life balance, but the summer one is always just really, really busy. Even on your days off, you constantly have to be across stories, and because everyone's got smartphones now, so you're always being pinged messages about different deals. So part of the job is that you've got to be on call, not 24 hours a day, because obviously everybody sleeps, but it is an all-consuming job, especially in August. You know, normally people like going on holiday in August, but for us, it's really tricky to get time away in August because things just get busier and busier the whole time. You know, I find it, when I was younger, people weren't as obsessed with transfers as they are now. Obviously, it's a good thing from a personal point of view because people are interested in the work we do, but it does seem as if transfers are just like getting even bigger than the actual game sometimes. How hard is it to distinguish what is a credible source or not, and how many do you disregard on a daily basis? Another really good question. I think the easiest way to answer that question is a credible source is only somebody you know. It's only somebody you've dealt with before. You know, on a daily basis, how much information do we get out of the blue? Not much. I would say maybe once a week or once every couple of weeks, somebody may contact you who you've never come across in the industry before. You know, they could claim to be an agent for a particular player, often players that you haven't heard of before. You know, if the player and the clubs involved are not that big, you're probably going to disregard that in a polite way. And sometimes you also get pranksters who somehow get hold of your phone number or your work email address and pretend that they've got inside information on some deals. Obviously with those you've just got to hit delete because, you know, why would people be contacting you out of the blue about big deals? I think the easiest way to answer that question is, you know, we're not going to deal with people we don't know. The people who we get information from and we talk to, whether they're at clubs or whether they're intermediaries or agents or managers or players or chief executives or owners, these are people you've got long-standing relationships with. So those are the only people who I would personally ever deal with. What was the most out of the blue transfer for you? There are not really that many out of the blue transfers anymore. When I was a kid, I remember walking down the street and seeing a little billboard advertising that day's newspaper, and it said Andy Cole had signed for Manchester United, and that just like blew my mind because at the time he was an incredible striker for Newcastle, scored so many goals. And I think that was during the season because there were no transfer windows then. And that was just like, what? And that was a really famous one where Kevin Keegan had to come out outside St James's Park because there were so many angry Newcastle United fans, and he was trying to placate them and explain to them exactly why he decided to let Andy Cole move to Manchester United. But that was a long time ago. These days, all the transfers are really sort of telegraphed in advance. And there's so much discussion and talk and debate about them on so many different platforms and channels. So you don't really get out of the blue transfers anymore. Are there any things about the transfer process that you think ordinary fans would find surprising? Do you know what? I don't think there is. What I'm really struck by is when I sort of go to games and talk to fans, or when people stop me in the street, you know, all they want to talk about is transfers, whether it's in this country or abroad when I'm working abroad. And one thing that really strikes me is how much fans know about transfers now, know about the process, know about players. You know, some of these fans know more about the background of players than I do. So I think it's you know, I wouldn't say the process is transparent because obviously a lot of things go on behind closed doors, but I don't think there's anything that ordinary fans would find surprising about what goes on. I think ordinary fans are pretty much clued up about what happens in the transfer market these days. Do you miss the old deadline day transfer format where live updates were given from clubs around the country? So I think what this question is getting at is, in the old days on Sky Sports News, as reporters on deadline day, we would be live at stadiums or at training grounds, and people would see that we were there, so fans would come and stand behind us, and as the day would go on, more and more fans would turn up because the fans would know that they could get on live TV. But obviously there ended up being some sort of well-documented issues with having so many people involved in live broadcasts, and so that has sort of stopped. Well, the element of having members of the public or fans around us, that has stopped. But we're still live at training grounds, we're still live at stadiums, we've got cameras everywhere as well on deadline day. So it's changed. The question is, do I miss the old format? Yeah, I mean, you got a buzz out of it in the old days. I remember it was exciting having lots of fans around, but then you need to have security around as well. And then when you would, especially at night, it was tricky because everybody could tell when you were live because the camera operators would put their lights on, and then everybody would get excited and try to squeeze around you to get on TV, and you never knew what was going to happen next. So there was always that sort of element of danger. But I think that was the sort of pre-social media age. I just don't think it'd be possible for us to take those kind of risks in the world that we live in now. What's your opinion on the Alexander Isak saga? My personal opinion is I don't like the way he's behaved. I think if you've got, a contract, especially if it's got 3 years left on it, whatever promises were made, I don't know, he was promised a new contract. The people who made those promises left the club, apparently. He feels, that he's been badly treated. I just think, personal opinion, not necessarily the opinion of Sky Sports News, personal opinion, I think you should always play for your club. You should always train, you should always play. There's better ways to go about getting a move. But from a sort of football business point of view, this kind of thing happens the whole time. Obviously he feels like Liverpool have come for him. He thinks this is his one chance to move to a club as big as Liverpool, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen. So on the one hand, I think personally it's disappointing. On the other hand, I think football's not just a sport anymore, it's a business as well. Hope that answers all your questions. Never done this before. That was actually a bit more nerve-wracking than being on live TV, but who knows? Hope you like it.